Honorable colleagues, the House and the Committee of the Whole considered the report of a bill for an act to amend the Federal Polytechnics Act 2020 and for related matters. Approved Clause 1, the schedule and as amended, long title, and the explanatory memorandum of the report. The House also considered in the Committee of the Whole the report of a bill for an act to establish the National Hydrographic Agency to carry out hydrographic and oceanographic surveys, including ocean meteorology for national defense and civil requirements and for related matters. Clerk, this is wrong. You didn't put the amendment. This is on the civil works. So the House, in the Committee of the Whole, considered the report of a bill of an act to establish a National Hydrographic Agency to carry out hydrographic and oceanographic surveys, including ocean meteorology for national defense and civil requirements and for related matters. And the House, whilst approving clauses 1 to 24, deleted both in the title and all clauses, all references to civil works, and also approved the long title as amended and the explanatory memorandum of the report. The House also in the Committee of the Whole considered the report of a bill for an act to establish the Federal University of Agriculture and Entrepreneurship in Oyo State and for related matters. Approved clauses 1 to 27, the schedules, long title, and the explanatory memorandum of the report. And the House also, in the Committee of the Whole, considered the report of a bill for an act to provide for establishment of Federal College of Education, Technical, Yauri, Kebbi State, to provide full-time courses, teaching, instructions, and training in technology, applied science, arts, social sciences, humanities, and management, to carry out research on the development and adoption of technologies and for related matters. And approved clauses 1 to 25, the schedule, the long title, and the explanatory memorandum of the report. Deputy Leader, please move for adoption of the reports.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, I'm Comrade Peter Ohiozo Jack Patterson, MNI. I represent Akukwedo people. Mr. Speaker, I move that the House in plenary do consider the report of the Committee of the Whole. I so move.
Seconder, for the adoption of report, Honorable Osai. You want to second the adoption of our reports? Adoption of the Committee of the Whole report. Correct. Okay, thank you. This is a public say aye. Mr. Against name. Ayes have it. So we have a supplementary You have a supplementary order paper, and the next order of the day is consideration of report of the Committee of Finance on the 2022-2024 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. Honorable members will recall that the report was laid on Wednesday, 22nd of September 2021. Honorable James Abiodun Faleke will move for its consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. My name is James Abiodun Faleke. I represent Ikeja Federal Constituency. Mr. Speaker, I move that the House do consider the report of the Committee of Finance on the 2022-2024 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper and approve the recommendations there. Mr. Speaker, I so move. Thank you.
Honorable Babao.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues. Amejaha Babao is my name. I represent Chibok Dambo Goza Federal Constituency. I rise to second a motion ably moved by Chairman House Committee on Finance for the House to empathize to the Committee of Supply. I so second.
The question is that the House is up to the committee to consider the House is up to consider the report of the Committee on Finance on the 2022 to 2024 billion-term expenditure framework. Those in support, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. Deputy Leader, please move that the House is up to the Committee of the Whole of Supply. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do move that the House resolve to the Committee of Supply to consider the report. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Where have you been? I haven't seen you well. Please, can you see supply? Kaduna Mafia. It's on. Your mic is on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I am Shehu Balarabe. I represent the good people of Birnungwari, Giwa Federal Constituency. I'm from Kaduna State. Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion heavily moved by the Deputy Leader. I so second. Thank you.
Congratulations on Kaduna Invest.
Thank you very much, sir.
It was we watched it on. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it. But well done. Regards to the governor.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Those in favor, please say aye. Those against, please say nay. Ayes have it. House is also the Committee of Supply. Honorable members, the report to be considered is that of the Committee on Finance on the 2022 to 2024 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper. And I'll call on Honorable Faleke to give us a brief synopsis of the report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, honorable colleagues. My name is James Abiodun Faleke. I represent Ikeja Federal Constituency. I am from Lagos State. I will to remind the House that the request was made by Mr. President on the 8th of July 2021. The request for the medium-term expenditure framework 2022-2024 was made on the 8th of July 2021. The concept actually was it's a framework is to provide details of the historical performance of budget forecasts for macroeconomic aggregates of real and nominal GDP, as well as estimates of government revenues and expenditure. The fiscal strategy paper also presents a number of economic forecast projections and key underlying assumptions as well as government medium-term outlook. In order to save time of our members, I want to refer to page 16 of the report that we all have. Page 16. No, okay, let's go to page 15. Page 15, which deals first on the medium-term objectives, policies, and strategies. This fiscal strategy paper highlights the macroeconomic and fiscal policy objectives of the government over the period 2022-24 and the strategies to be implemented to achieve them. In the medium term, government aims at accelerating economic growth, facilitating job creation and preservation, achieving macroeconomic stability, and promoting poverty reduction and equity. The fiscal strategy paper highlights the macroeconomic and fiscal policy objectives of the government over the period of 2022-2024. To achieve these objectives, well-designed fiscal, monetary, and trade policies will be implemented in a very coordinated manner. Government's economic objectives include stimulating active private sector participation and inclusive economic growth, creation of productivity, employment, and preserving jobs, ensuring macroeconomic stability, and promoting poverty reduction and equity. The thrust of government's fiscal policy in the medium term is to sustain reforms, enhance fiscal resilience, and ensure fiscal and debt sustainable through improved government revenue, creating fiscal space for infrastructure development, enhancing fiscal prudence and transparency, and of course, ensuring sustainable deficits and debt levels. To achieve most of these things, the FRS was recently reorganized with the use of ICT for optimal performance and to achieve desired revenue projections. Similarly, the Nigeria Customs Service was strategically galvanized with the procurement of scanners to be used around the ports for maximum efficiency in the area of revenue generation. The operational efficiency of GOEs continue to form government's focal points in order to ensure maximum and huge financial potentials of those enterprises. The Central Bank of Nigeria medium-term monetary policy is to be consistent in fiscal year 2022-2024 to obtain relevant monetary aggregate benchmarks consistent with the desired overall macroeconomic objective of the federal government. The same is anchored on the need to augment the fiscal effort to strengthen ongoing recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic without hampering the attainment of price stability and overall monetary policy. The summary of 2022 FGN revenue and expenditure framework. Page 16. The daily crude oil production is pegged at 1.88 million barrels per day, and benchmark oil price is 57 barrels per day. Exchange rate is 410 naira to US dollar. The GDP is 4.20%. Inflation rate is 13%. FGN retained revenue for 2022 will be 8.36 trillion naira. Total FGN proposed expenditure is 13.98 trillion. The fiscal deficit of days is 5.62 trillion, including the GOEs. New borrowings in 2022 will be 4.89 trillion, including foreign and domestic. Statutory transfers of 613.4 billion, debt service 3.60 trillion, sinking fund is 292 billion, pension, gratuities, retirees benefits is 567 billion. Total FGN expenditure expected in 2022 is 13.98 trillion. Total recurrent non-debt is 6.26 trillion. Personnel costs, MDAs, is 3.47 trillion. Capital expenditure estimate, exclusive of transfers, is 3.26 trillion. Special intervention recurrent, 350 billion. Special intervention capital is 10 billion. The findings of the committee, at the end of the committee MDA's interactive session, the following findings were established. That the daily crude oil production was estimated at 1.8 in 2022, 2.23 2023, and 2.22 2024, respectively. Given the fact that crude oil production has averaged 1.93 million barrels per day over the past 3 years, and that such a very conservative oil output benchmark has been adopted for the medium term in order to ensure greater budget realism and following wide consultations with key stakeholders. The benchmark price of $57 per barrel has been proposed for 2022, $55 2023, and for 2024, taking into consideration, the benchmark price is $57 per barrel for 2022 and 2023, and $55 for 2024. Taking into consideration crude oil price forecast by World Bank and the EIA, as well as consultations with the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. That notwithstanding the higher naira to dollar exchange rates in the parallel market, which the CBN refuses to recognize as legitimate window in the Nigeria's foreign exchange rate, a benchmark exchange rate of $410.15 has been proposed for the years 2022-2024. That a GDP rate of 4.20 has been projected for the period 2022, while it dropped to 2.30 in 2023 and picking up gradually to 3.30 in 2024. The inflation rate was put at 13% in 2022. It's expected to drop to 11% in 2023 and 10% in 2024. With respect to borrowings in 2022 fiscal year, the committee observed that an estimate of 4.89 trillion, including foreign and domestic borrowing, has been proposed. The following sundry parameters in the 2022 MTEF document: FGN retail revenue 8.36 trillion, as total of FGN proposed expenditure of 13.98 trillion. Fiscal deficit of 5.62 trillion, including GOEs. New borrowings expected is 4.89 trillion, including foreign and domestic borrowing, subject to the provisions of the details of borrowing plan to the National Assembly. Statutory transfers totaling 613.4 billion, debt service estimate 3.12 trillion, sinking fund to the tune of 292 billion, pension gratuities, retirees benefits of 567 billion, and aggregate FGN expenditure of 13.98 trillion, made up of total recurrent non-debt of 6.21 trillion, personnel cost of MDAs of 3.47 trillion, capital expenditure exclusive of transfers of 3.26 trillion. Special intervention recurrent amounting to 350 billion, and special intervention capital amounting to 10 billion. That the personnel costs of some agencies and parastatals of government are on the increase. A huge amount goes to the top management staff, as observed with Security and Exchange Commission as an example. That there are frivolous deductions, diversions of funds, and underreporting of revenues by MDAs, hiding under the disguise of their enabling acts. That according to the GMD and NPC, the nation's level of consumption of PMS is not reflecting its importation due to diversion, round-tripping, and smuggling across the borders. That the revenue records of most agencies of government does not correlate with other relevant agencies in their leagues, such as NNPC, DPR, and Nigerian Customs Service, indicating that the agencies are under-reporting their revenue. The committee also found out that there was an underpayment of custom duties on imported goods due to smuggling and lack of installation of scanners at the ports and our borders. The royalties, ground rents, and license renewal paid by all mining operators in Nigeria has been inadequate, and their disclosures not transparent enough. The committee also established that there exists inadequate deployment of information and technology (ICT) in the mining cadastral office. As such, there are lots of illegal miners in the country without licenses to operate and revenue not being tapped from such. That most budgets of government-owned enterprise are most revenue budgets of government-owned enterprise are understated, as this enterprise have the capability to generate more revenue to the government. That the shortfall of revenue reported by MDAs is due to the shortcomings of the offices of Accountant General, Auditor General, and Fiscal Responsibility Commission in the area of staff strength and underfunding of these offices. That many acts of agencies, setting up agencies of this government, are not nationalistic but self-serving. That many agencies of the government demonstrate capacity to stand on their own without depending on federal government budget, thereby depleting the optimal usage of national resources. For example, NAFDAC and Nigerian College of Aviation Technology in Zaria. Recommendations. In view of these findings, the committee hereby recommends as follows. 1, that the daily crude oil production of 1.88 million barrels per day.
Honorable Colleague, there are about 17 recommendations.
Yeah, you want to take?
If you can just, maybe the salient ones that you think are important, because
Sorry?
maybe the ones you think are extremely important, because we all have it in front of us.
Okay.
But by the time we go through 17, let's just study it, and then if you think there's any important one, we should take note of it. This is supposed to be a synopsis.
Yes. Okay, we have proposed 17 recommendations as contained in the other paper before us. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Honorable Faleke, for a job well done. The last part of your synopsis, there was quite a few damning things in that report. And I think this is the time I don't know what your recommendations are, but this is the time your committee should go to work. And I think a lot of these things, shortfall in revenue, MDAs relying on operating capital and all of that by law, I think these things can be cured by legislation. It's about leakages, and yes, it's a good job, and we need to free up revenue for other areas. Honorable Munir, did you want to?
I just want him to enlighten us on this issue of recovered loot. Where do they fall under their, maybe during the course of the interacting with the agency, some of the recovered loot, where do they hang within the MTF?
Okay, we're going slightly out of procedure, but it's very important. It's the MTF. We'll just allow a little leeway. Do you want to address that, Honorable Falege? Yes.
It's purely out of my purview, and what is presented to us, led by Mr. President, is the document that we consider.
Yeah, the recovered loans will be under aids and loans, I believe, I think. Anyway, Honorable Benny.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My name is Benny La, I represent Lantern North and South. I have a question concerning the salaries and wages he was talking about. Number 9 here says that the Salaries and Wages Commission should review the salary structure of all.
Is that part of the recommendations?
Yes, but I have.
No, when we get to recommendations, when we're taking it recommendation by recommendation, we'll just based on the synopsis.
Just point out some, but he didn't point out. He mentioned it in his speech. And my question is that when you review, because already we have a lot of complaints from some agencies across the board, and they're saying that the federal government wants to reduce their salaries, so to say, because he did mention that some in management staff, and he gave an example of SEC, receive too much money. But Mr. Speaker, these people have been receiving these salaries over time. I don't think after you get an employment and a contract letter, then halfway into your service, then your salary is reviewed downwards or reduced. I think this I think it should be, when you make laws are not supposed to be retrogressive.
I think,
It should be, as from now on, this is what the new salary structure would be, and not necessarily to reduce salary structures for those who are already serving. So, Mr. Speaker, I want us to raise that point that please, salaries should not be reduced for any serving public servant. I think it would be a great disservice to this nation.
I'm not sure, but I think I'll have to look at it properly. I think it's even unconstitutional to review downwards. I don't think they can review downwards somebody's salary, except, I don't know, we need to be clear on that. Yes. Honorable Aside and Honorable Toby, Honorable Gagdi.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I looked at it, and first of all, I want to praise the chairman for critical highlighting in details, virtually item by item. We have also expected the caliber of Faleke to do more work as he has done. So I praise the committee. My only worry is in item 7 of the recommendation.
No, when we get to the recommendations one by one, this is just, I'm just allowing people to talk on the synopsis, which is really isn't the procedure, but because it's important, we'll allow a leeway.
Okay,
but,
let me drop this one.
Then when we get to it.
But to strengthen his talk, Mr. Chairman, you will agree with me that when you project a revenue, you are talking about all the monies collected over time, and the one you are expecting, just like the borrowing that has also been part of the item. I believe the highlight, because Nigeria have recovered money over the years, including this year, including the one recently recovered from London at the British government. Now, and we are projecting for next year, and yet those monies are not highlighted. It's a question with the Honorable House should ask. If we do not highlight this money, when will it be used? Or is it going to be used outside the approval of National Assembly? In line with Section 80 of the Constitution. Section 80 of the Constitution. With your kind permission, I will read Section 80.
Section 80 is about public funds.
Yeah, public fund. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. That's why I always praise you as the most experienced speaker that the current republic has ever produced, because you have that at the back of your mind. So, Mr. Speaker, if really the authority to approve is domiciled in National Assembly of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it then means those money should have been brought forward. They highlight how it will be allocated to, should be brought, so that at the end of the day, because if you watch the detailed information we're having here, sir, I have just calculated all the figures, and I've seen where we are in deficit. And I've also seen that when you compare the issues of the servicing of the debts, you agree with me that we'll have probably only 20% or 2% to finance projects at the end of the day. So, in approving this, because the committee has done work a lot, in approving this, we should also make a clause that in going forward before loans and it brings in their report, because it's not going to be part of loans, because it has no bearing in loans. So, but it should be incorporated. That highlight should be incorporated, so that we can be able to do the needful and know how we move forward. I so submit.
All right. Noted. Honorable Gagdi, then we move to this.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Chairman, distinguished colleague Yusuf Gagdi from Plateau, Panshinkanke, Kana. Mr. Chairman, most of the comments have been highlighted by my senior colleague, but there is something you say that we don't need to take it for granted. I believe if we strengthen our capacity to do our oversight functions well, like the Chairman House Committee on Finance did by presenting this report to us, most of the problem envisaged will be solved. For instance, to commend him, at the risk of sounding immodest, a committee is coming up with clear names of agencies that are defaulting in times of revenue generation. So that is very serious and is very important for us to appreciate the commitment of the Committee on Finance to have come up with name of these agencies that are hiding their own revenue generation capacity. But again, if you look at the report and the recommendation as well, they are perfect. But we must equally recommend for a strong penalty, encouraging the various committees of the National Assembly to do their work the way the finance are doing by drawing red lines, calling a spade, telling agencies that are hiding their own revenue, why are you hiding your own revenue, and making it very difficult for federal government to implement what has been appropriated by the National Assembly.
Thank you.
Sir, I want to call on your leadership to equally talk tough to ministries, departments, and agencies of government, particularly if we consider this recommendation, and there is no one that seems to accommodate the findings of the committee. We should be able to come up with a strong recommendation that will serve as a deterrent, Mr. Speaker, if implemented, to those agencies and departments of government that are insubordinating the efforts of the Nigerian people by hiding their own revenue generation and equally defaulting. And again, finally, sir, no point retrogressively addressing the wages of civil servants, public servants. I will call on equally this report to equally look at the matter by giving another resolution that will equally compel agencies of government that salaries of civil public servants in Nigeria should not be retrogressive, but it should be progressive in a situation whereby inflation rate is high, exchange rate is high, everything is high. Standard living condition of the people is equally very, very, very terrible. So we have to do things that, thank you, sir.